We've been using Avail now for the last 4 years, really strong. The first year was more or less on an experimental basis, testing. I tested with my board members on some of their fields. They had some problems there, and we did that. And basically, 2 years ago, we ended up treating approximately 200 ton of phosphate with Avail by impregnating, and I got my fertilizer phosphate in on rail, so I did put up a system where I impregnate it as I'm unloading from the rail car, going through an auger to the leg into my fertilizer storage facility with another auger going to the bin, so it got mixed up really well, and we kept it separate. We've had some very good results with Avail. We did some tests a few years ago, like our second year into it, where one of my board members was having a problem with a field, approximately 45 acres. The one end of it, half of it, was yielding about 15 to 20 bushel less than the other end of the field. So we went in and soil tested it, put Avail on with the phosphate and the potash, and did it crossways to about the middle of the field, and then left it out on the rest of the field. And that fall, when he came in to harvest that field of corn, he had an even yield all the way across it. So he's seen an advantage there, and at today he puts Avail in all of his phosphate for him and uses it on all his ground. Another case was up in Keister, Minnesota area, that I've got another fertilizer plant that a farmer had 90 acres of field, and we did a 30-acre test strip with 100 pounds of phosphate with Avail on it, and then did 30 acres with just phosphate alone, and did another 30 acres with ammonia sulfate with 100 pounds of phosphate. And that fall, he harvested the corn, and where we had Avail on the phosphate, there was a 17 bushel yield increase. The farmers are excited because they're seeing bigger yields, and they come back to me and says, whatever I do this last year, keep on doing, because I'm doing something right. We've used Nutrisphere in the past just basically on corn crops only, because it's a nitrogen stabilizer, and that's what I'm really after. I like to see the nitrogen stabilized that we're putting out there. We run a lot of UAN, and probably right now, we're probably 2/3 of my UAN going out to all my customers has all got Nutrisphere-N this coming year. We started out slow, experimenting with it, seeing that there was some definitely yield advantage. Also, what caught my eye about 3 years ago was when we were filling the trucks up with UAN. You always have that real strong ammonia smell when you're loading over the top, that comes up on a nice warm day, spring day. That ammonia smell comes right up and gets you in the nose and face, and you're gasping. When we start UAN going in the trucks and we start adding our Nutrisphere, it's gone. The ammonia smell isn't there no more, and it's telling me that it's tying up that nitrogen aspect of the UAN, and it's not going to volatilize. So that's what I like about it, and in what we've been seeing in the last 4 years, we're increasing yield substantially with it. The nitrogen is getting stabilized, so it's more available in the June, July time period when the corn crop really needs it, and we're getting better yields, we're getting better test weight, especially this last year with the late summer we had with the heat units that we're behind. We're behind probably about 2 to 250 heat units behind. Corn was late, corn was wet. The farmers dried it, it was hard drying, but the corn that's coming into our elevator right now today, we're finding I can almost pick out my customers because the test weight is at least a couple, 3 pounds heavier, and the quality of the grain is better. Actual yield results with treated and not treated in the same field, we're seeing anywhere from approximately 4 to 18 bushel yield advantage in the same fields. The response from Avail or Nutrisphere, or a combination of both of them, is that we're seeing on corn especially, we're seeing a better plant health, longer stay green during the growing season, especially on our soils that have our marginal soils where it goes up and down from heavy soil to lighter soils. We're seeing a lot more longer life and good plant health in the corn, especially on corn. It stays greener, it's putting on a nice girthy ear on it, and the yields are there.